Crack cocaine is not ideal. It's really not. And neither is excessive drinking. But you know who did both of those things? The 1986 Mets. And what did the 1986 Mets do? Win the frickin' World Series. And there's no secret on how much of a madhouse the Mets clubhouse was that year. Everyone knows. If you didn't know, now you do. It's out there. I'm not telling you anything new. But as time continues to go, it's like how our own government, hides things from us. I think there's something we weren't told about with that team. So I'm going to take out my tinfoil conspiracy hat here. I'm convinced the 1986 Mets took a deal with the devil. It's like this Twilight Zone episode where this dude makes a deal with the devil to be immortal just to end up in prison. The 1986 Mets struck a deal with the devil to be immortal for just 1986. They can have all the fun they want, be as stupid as humanly possible, and have it result in a championship no matter what. The catch? This franchise and its fans will suffer for eternity. So thank you for being here, especially if you're a Mets fan. God bless your soul, subscribed or not. And if you haven't joined the 49% elite humans, consider hitting that button if you enjoy the videos, as naturally, just based off how last year ended, going on a deeper miracle playoff run than anyone would have thought. Yeah, now add Juan Soto to that team. Not just Juan Soto, a top 3 hitter in the game, but you're taking him away from the Yankees and making him your own. The pitching, had some question marks, sure. This wasn't an elite team in every aspect, but there was obviously reason to be excited about the 2025 Mets. I mean, I feel like that's the bare minimum with a payroll more expensive than your average Marvel movie. I feel like that's, the bare minimum when your highest paid player makes up more than half of almost a third of the league's entire payrolls. But hey, that's how awesome Steve Cohen is. The man is filthy rich and also doing what any of us would be doing if we were owners of our favorite baseball team. Now, if you want to know the extent to just how methed out the sport of baseball is, let's go to the trade deadline. July 31st, where the Cleveland Guardians, the 54 Cleveland Guardians, were 9 games back of the Detroit Tigers. Their closer, arguably the best reliever in all of baseball, just 3 days earlier went on administrative leave for suspicions he was gambling on games. And the Guardians, of course, were looking to sell. They were not looking to buy and make a deep postseason run. Meanwhile, the New York Mets, the 62-47 first place New York Mets, were, of course, all in, adding 3 relievers to their bullpen, plus Cedric Mullins for the outfield. And they were all very different kinds of relievers, too. All good in their own ways, but in unique ways. Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals has a 103-mile-an-hour fastball in his back pocket with a wipeout slider. Gregory Soto does the same thing from the left side. Plus, his name is Soto, so you're adding another Soto. That can't be a bad strategy. Then Tyler Rogers, who doesn't throw hard at all, but is a submarine pitcher with a gross slider that moves up because he's throwing at such a funky angle. So an already strong Mets team just got stronger.
Many months later,
the Cleveland Guardians have won their division. And the New York Mets? To me, this team was Hall of Fame cooked the moment they got swept by the Phillies, because to that point, that was all the Mets had. They had an awful August, but even during that month, as crappy as it was, they still swept the Phillies in 3 games at home to then be 7-2 on the season against them. So again, August, ugly. As ugly as Jeff Bezos' wife's fake face. But at least just like that woman has money, the Mets had the fact that they were dominating the Phillies. They were proving they could do that, at least. But then they get swept in 4 games in Philly. Rocky Balboa from the clouds socking them in the face. So they didn't even have that anymore. Now they were just a sad team, insanely underperforming no matter who they played. And then they lost 2 of 3 to the Texas Rangers. They somehow took 2 of 3 from the Padres just to go right back to losing to the Washington Nationals, the last place Washington Nationals, in case you thought somehow between the last time you heard about that team they became good. No, they're still awful. They beat the Mets twice in the second to final weekend of the season. Jacob Young, okay, let's talk about him for a second. He must have had Darryl Strawberry tell him his mom was a hoe or something when he was a kid. This man has to have some sort of personal grudge against the Mets, because you have got to be kidding. Or it's the baseball gods helping him with some voodoo magic shit, I'm telling you. That was it for the home games. If you were going to have to make the postseason, now it would have to be winning some games on the road. First up in Chicago against the Cubs, where they win 2 of 3. So, okay, nice bounce back series, but here's the issue with all this, though. Even though they won this series, that's still a game they lost, and every single loss just hurts that much more, because the Cincinnati Reds, a team that's just been kind of there all year, coasting along, not falling too far behind anyone, but not really making any noise either, like the definition of an NPC team. Well, they had come alive, in large part because the Mets wanted nothing to do with making the playoffs. The Reds were playing well, but they were basically just playing well enough, while the Mets were just playing bad enough for both teams to be hanging in there. The Reds 4 games swept the Cubs right before the Mets played them, but the Pirates did come in and take 2 of 3 from the Reds in Cincinnati. They barely won the last game. So, I mean, the Reds have been hanging on by a thread for a couple of weeks now. Like, we're talking one win would basically knock them out. Meanwhile, the Mets, the $341 million Mets, have had every opportunity imaginable to end any chance the Reds had to just take that final wild card spot that they had owned for so long. Even through all the struggles, they had it in the palm of their hands. So many chances to just end it, only for them to say no. So on to Little Havana in Miami to try and finally salvage a playoff spot. It feels they should have locked up minimum a week and a half ago. So this is how it had to go. The Mets had to finish this season at least 1 game up on the Reds to get that last spot. If the two finished tied with each other record-wise, tiebreaker goes to the Reds because they won the season series. And this just emphasizes how, even though it's so easy to overlook the importance of games throughout a baseball season because there's 162 of them frickin' things, it's times like these where you realize, oh, that meaningless game back in May or June that your team blew or something you didn't think much of at the time, yeah, that's kind of like the stuff that can come back to bite you right in the ass. Yeah, I don't think many people thought that when the Reds took 2 of 3 from the Mets in the middle of July that would mean as much as it did 3 months later. But it did. They had another series this month in September in Cincinnati that the Reds had won. So the Reds were 4-2 against the Mets this year. But the Mets were a game up on the Reds going into their last series in Miami. And Francisco Lindor opened this up like a man on a mission. Leadoff home run, then Pete Alonso, 3 batters later, drives in Juan Soto to make it 2-0. Then in comes Brandon Sproat dominating on the mound. 4 shutout innings. He's cruising. Marlins can't quite put together anything against him. Well, they were waiting for the 5th. Griffin Conine starts things off with a base hit. Then Troy Johnston, same thing. Then Heriberto Hernandez says, you guys are lame. Singles are boring. How about a triple? Game tied just like that. 2 ground outs later bring Hernandez home for the lead. In comes Gregory Soto, one of the free agent acquisitions. Yeah, turns out adding another Soto doesn't mean anything. Twice the pride, double the fall. His ERA has been 5 since joining the team. And here he is giving up a base hit to give Miami another run. Actually, add 2 more while we're at it. Bomb. 6-2 Marlins. And that was it. After that first inning, Lindor immediately smacking a bomb, Soto getting a hit, then Pete driving him home. The Mets got 3 hits the rest of this game. They lose. Meanwhile, over in Milwaukee, the Reds were doing what they needed to do. After going down 1-0 in the third, they put together 3 runs throughout the course of the game, while 5 pitchers combined to keep the Brewers at just that 1 run. Mets and Reds are all knotted up. Now back to Miami, where the Mets actually played well. Like, this went just about as good as possible. Pete Alonso is the man on a mission. He doubles in another run, just like he did Friday night, except that wasn't when his night ended on Saturday. He goes deep for his 38th home run of the year. Mets score 5 runs, and in the end only needed 1 because their pitching came through like crazy. Clay Holmes, hats off to Clay Holmes. Guy being a starting pitcher for the first time in his career. He put up a really nice season, and it didn't end here. 6 innings, just 1 hit, and that's all the Marlins got the entire game. 1 hit. The bullpen kept that going. Complete domination, and they needed it, because if they lost this game, that would have been it, because meanwhile, back in Milwaukee, you'd think the Brewers were just trying to screw over the Mets on purpose for how they ended their season last year. I mean, oh my God. 6-0 Reds. Brewers did make this somewhat interesting, but they weren't playing around. They put in Emilio Pagan, the Reds, their closer, for the 4th straight day, which is the first time he's ever pitched that many days in a row in his career, in his life. So the Reds stayed tied with the Mets, meaning they were in the driver's seat going into the final day of the season. So the Mets had to win and have the Reds lose. That was the only way they could get in now. And I think the most fitting thing ended up happening. The Reds finally lost. They went up early in this game. Ellie De La Cruz, he's smelling October. He wants it. He goes deep. Then TJ Friedel, another solo bomb. 2-0 Reds. But 2 straight doubles in the same inning for the Brewers cut that lead in half before a 3-run 5th inning put them on top. And that was it. Surprisingly, I mean, I was expecting the Reds to stay hot and clutch. But now I realize, no, it's actually fitting it happened this way. The Mets, with a Reds loss, now just had to win 1 more game to finally take that last wildcard spot. And this was a disaster. If you want an idea on how desperate things got, the Mets went to their bullpen in the 2nd inning. Not because their starter, Sean Manaea, was even getting knocked around that crazy. No, just because there were 2 guys on. By the 4th inning, the Mets had already used 4 pitchers and had Edwin Diaz, their closer, warming up. In the 4th inning, didn't help. The Marlins rally for 4 runs in the 4th, and as if things couldn't get any more painful, the Mets, down 4, load the bases up with 2 outs, and up comes Pete Alonso, who hits a ball harder than I think he ever has in his life. He hit this thing at 116 miles an hour with the bases loaded. Never a time it's been needed more. And I'm telling you right now, God hates this team for the deal they made in 1986. What other explanation do you need? Pete is flabbergasted. Yeah, I'm pulling out that word for this one. That's how you know shit's real. The Mets had at least 1 guy on base every inning for the last 4 innings just to do nothing. Their next best rally was the 8th inning. Pete Alonso started it off with another hit. I mean, he's got to feel like this right now. Mets have 2 on, 1 out. Jeff McNeil strikes out. Francisco Alvarez, strike 3. 3 outs away from their season being over. Ronnie Mauricio leads off with a walk. Cedric Mullins flies out, now 2 outs away, and Francisco Lindor says this is taking way too long. Might as well just end this misery ASAP. Ground ball to second for 2. Season over. The $341 million 2025 New York Mets are officially done. LOL Mets has never been more real. The curse of 1986 has never been more real. Stewie Griffin has never been more right.
Halloween's a bigger letdown than being a Mets fan.
And the season's over.
Meanwhile, we actually have a live look in on how sad Juan Soto is. Long winter ahead. Let me know your thoughts and thank you for watching. Love you. Bye.